My name is Danielle Harper, 36, and I never thought checking my phone would ruin my morning. I had just come back from a health tech summit in Austin, 3 days of panels, pitches, and terrible hotel pillows. All I wanted was coffee from my own kitchen and 5 minutes of peace. Instead, I opened Instagram. There it was. My husband's sister Chelsea grinning on the deck of our family yacht, champagne in hand. A caption that read, "Legacy Weekend. Family only. The yacht I paid for it. The family I married into it. The invite never came." The irony wasn't lost on me. Before I continue, where are you watching from today? Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt quietly pushed aside. Trust me, what happened next proved that silence can be louder than any fight. Let me take you back to where it really began. I start my mornings slow. One hand wrapped around a ceramic mug, the other scrolling my phone out of habit. The view from our kitchen window always hits the marble just right. Nathan was already gone when I woke up, off to some high-stakes portfolio review with a client who thinks oil futures are sexy. He left behind his usual trail: cufflink charger cord, half a protein bar. The silence was familiar. Not cold, just efficient. I wasn't looking for anything, just flicking through Slack messages and unread press inquiries. Then I saw it, a looping boomerang on Maya's story. Champagne flutes, Sunday flair, polished deck rails. Caption: Legacy Weekend kicks off again. Let's go Clark crew. I blinked. Watched it again. There was Sabrina in white linen. Elliot beside her. Lillian at the center of the table like a queen bee with pearls. I paused. No tag for me. No mention. No trace. I pulled up the family group thread. Clark Legacy Circle. I used to be in it. Still remembered the day Nathan added me, smiling as he said, "Now you're official." But my name wasn't there anymore. I searched my inbox. Nothing from the charter company. No calendar hold. No save the date. Just silence. My coffee was still warm, but something inside me chilled. This wasn't a mistake. It was a message. At first I sat there frozen. Not with fear. Not even anger. Stillness. The kind you only feel when something clicks in a way you didn't want it to. This trip wasn't spontaneous. It had been tradition, every year since Lillian turned 60. Always the same yacht, the same script, the same people. Except me. The first year I went, I made the mistake of suggesting we rotate the destination. The second year, Sabrina assigned me to a cabin like I was lucky to be there. I stopped asking after that. But I had still hoped. Hope is a strange thing. It lingers even after logic leaves the room. That afternoon, I got the first confirmation. A message that wasn't meant for me. A screenshot forwarded by accident. A manifest. 10 names. 9 expected. 1 unfamiliar. My name had been neatly crossed out. Underneath it, confirmed for Belle. Belle? The yoga instructor Sabrina swore by. The one who once asked if I was Nathan's executive assistant. I stared at the screen. The next message was worse. A voice note. Sabrina's voice laughing. Well, at least the energy won't be so tight this year. Tight. I set the phone down gently, but my jaw hurt from clenching. That night at dinner, Nathan was swiping through market alerts between bites of grilled salmon. I waited. Then asked casually, "Did you know your family's doing another yacht weekend?" He looked up. Blinked. "Yeah, I think Mom mentioned it. They're still finalizing the list, I think." "Am I on the list?" I tilted my head. He paused, fork midair. "Of course. Why wouldn't you be?" I smiled just enough. "Just curious." He nodded and went back to his phone. "I'll double-check." But he wouldn't. He never did. I washed the dishes by hand, one at a time. Not because they needed it, but because it gave my hands something to do. Because silence often says more than shouting ever could. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, The fan blades moved in slow, even rotations, like a clock ticking but quieter. I thought about every time I was left out of something small. Brunches. Emails. Last-minute dinners I saw only in Instagram tags. You start by wondering why they forget you, but eventually you start asking why you kept showing up anyway. Before turning off the light, I opened the bottom drawer of my nightstand, pulled out the leather journal I kept only for sentences that had weight. I wrote one line. Watch. Don't react. Yet, the next morning I brewed coffee but didn't drink it. Saturday in the same seat, same granite countertop, same view of the skyline from our downtown apartment, but everything felt different. I knew what I had to do. I had built something real, something they couldn't erase with a seating chart, or so I thought. What I didn't know was that a cancellation confirmation was already sitting in my inbox, that it had been requested days earlier, not by me, by someone else. And that email would be the first receipt in a very different kind of folder. But we'll get to that. First, let me tell you what happened when I opened it. It came in while I was rinsing a glass. A ping from my phone. Nothing unusual. Until I saw the preview. It wasn't meant for me. A screenshot. The yacht's cabin assignments. 10 names neatly listed. Under portside guest rooms was mine. Or, what used to be mine. Crossed out. Right beneath it in bold letters was a new one. Belle. I stared at it for a moment. The kind of stare that goes past reading. You don't see words. You just feel what they mean. Then came the next message. A voice note. I tapped play without thinking. It was Sabrina, laughing. At least the energy on board won't be so tight this year. Tight? That word hit harder than the laugh. I set the glass down. My hands were steady, but something in my chest was not. That night at dinner, Nathan was deep in his usual rhythm. Fork phone financial updates. Bite scroll bite again. I waited until the plates were almost clean. Sabrina texted me today, I said. He looked up. Swallowed. Yeah, about the yacht. She said she forgot to reserve my spot. He frowned. That's weird. Are you sure? She called it a miscommunication. He took a long sip of water. Didn't look at me right away. Maybe it was. I mean, these things get chaotic. Everyone's trying to coordinate. It wasn't a miscommunication. I reached for my phone. Opened the email. I got a cancellation confirmation. His brow furrowed. What do you mean it was processed by her? 3 days ago. That made him pause. He didn't say anything. Just stared at the table. She replaced me, Nathan. With Belle. Still silence. And in that silence, I heard everything I needed to. Later that evening, he retreated to the den. His escape zone. Some playoff game muttering in the background. I didn't follow. I sat at the table with my laptop. Didn't scroll through photos. Didn't rewatch old clips. I didn't want memories. I opened a blank note and typed the title slowly. Things she's done that I let slide. I didn't expect the list to come so fast. The missed invites. The overlapping brunch plans. The fundraiser I organized that she took credit for on her Instagram. The podcast interview where she called the yacht our family's heirloom. Each entry cut deeper than I expected. Not because they were loud, because they were quiet, intentional. When I finished, my jaw ached again. Not from tension, from clarity. Right before I closed the laptop, another message popped up. This time from Sabrina's assistant. Not someone I knew well. Just a name I remembered from holiday emails about catering. Attached was another screenshot. A group thread. Clearly not meant for me. There was only one line that mattered. Sabrina. Don't worry. She's not coming. I handled it. I sat back, Those 4 words spun in my head like a carousel I couldn't step off. She handled it. Not ignored. Not forgot. Not overlooked. Handled. I didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just sat in the quiet until the clock blinked past 10. When the room was dark, I walked to the filing cabinet in the hallway. Pulled out a manila folder labeled Tax plus Property. Slipped the email inside. Closed it with a click. This wasn't about a cabin. It never was. It was about control. About story. About who gets to be in the frame and who gets cropped out. She thought I'd let it go. She was almost right. But what she didn't know was that the yacht, it wasn't some family treasure passed down like an old watch. It was the first thing I ever bought that nobody helped me with. 5 years of bootstrapping. Of pitching investors who told me I smiled too much to be taken seriously. Of skipping rent to fund prototypes. Of sleeping at truck stops while I ran freight myself. And when the company finally turned a profit, I didn't buy a Chanel bag or a Tesla. I bought a yacht. Quietly. No announcement. No photos. Just a signed check and a silent promise to myself. But for tax efficiency, I put Nathan's name on the paperwork too. Our accountant said it would help with trusts. That it was cleaner. Smarter. Maybe it was. Until it wasn't. Because over time the story changed. Sabrina called it our family's retreat. Lillian toasted to legacy. Elliot said it's good to have something that holds memories. None of them knew I was the one who picked the teak. Or the one who paid extra for solar paneling. Or the one who stood on the dock with the broker for 6 straight hours negotiating the final paperwork. They didn't ask. They didn't want to know. That's the thing about quiet women. People think if you're not shouting, you're not keeping score. But I was. And I had every receipt. Now the question wasn't if I'd use them. It was when. And more importantly, how. Because something was coming. And no one saw it yet. It came the next morning. Quietly. Almost politely. A cancellation email. Subject line cabin release confirmation. I opened it. Read it twice. The request had been submitted 3 days earlier. Under authorized contact was her name. Sabrina Holt. She hadn't just excluded me. She had submitted paperwork. Official. Time-stamped. Executed. I printed the email. Crisp copy. No edits, no redactions. Then I slid it into the manila folder I kept at the bottom of my desk drawer, the one labeled Tax plus Property. That label was temporary. I knew it the moment the paper touched the file. It would have a new name soon. That afternoon, Nathan came home early. The kind of early that usually meant a deal fell through or someone missed a wire. He dropped his keys into the ceramic dish. Same place. Same sound. Like it was any other day. I waited until he cracked open a beer before I spoke. Sabrina sent me a text. He took a sip. Yeah, she says she forgot to include me on the trip. His face shifted slightly. Not shock, just discomfort. That's weird. She told me it was all still being finalized. She lied. He hesitated. Maybe she thought we weren't going. I tilted my head. He didn't respond. I exhaled slowly. She submitted the cancellation. 3 days ago. That stopped him. Not because it was wrong, but because he knew it was true. He swirled the bottle in his hand, like it held a better answer at the bottom. I didn't wait for one. That night, he buried himself in ESPN. I didn't follow. I sat in the dining room with my laptop, the city lights blinking quietly outside the window. I didn't search for old texts. I didn't dig through photos. I wasn't chasing proof of belonging anymore. I opened a new note, titled it, Things She's Done That I Let Slide, and the list began to write itself. Forgot to include me in Maya's graduation dinner, claimed credit for the investor brunch I planned, tagged the wrong Avery in a LinkedIn announcement, and left it up for a week. Tiny things. Each one excused. Each one forgotten. Until they weren't. Until the weight of them filled a document longer than I expected. When I stopped typing, my fingers ached. Not from speed. From restraint. I sat back. The room was silent, but inside me something was sharpening. Then came the final click. An email. Not from Sabrina. From her assistant. Someone I barely knew. A name from RSVPs. Catering orders. PR list curation. Attached was a screenshot. Another group thread. Clearly not meant for me. It had one sentence. Sabrina, don't worry. She's not coming. I handled it. Handled. I printed that one too. Slipped it into the folder. Then closed it. Slowly. Carefully. This wasn't about a trip. This was about erasure. Not just from a weekend. From a story. From the version of our family Sabrina wanted to curate. One where I didn't exist. But here's what she didn't know. The yacht wasn't hers to gatekeep. It wasn't Nathan's either. It was mine. I had built something from the ground up. A company that started with cold emails and rejection after rejection. I remembered every VC who told me I was impressive but not quite aggressive enough. I remembered every panel where I spoke third even though the idea was mine. And I remembered the day I signed the check. Not a lease. Not a timeshare. A purchase. A full wire-transferred independently funded acquisition. I didn't post about it. Didn't toast it. Just smiled to myself as the pen hit the paper. That was the day I felt real. Visible. Capable. Beyond negotiation. But then came the lawyers. Then came the tax talk. Joint ownership, they said. Cleaner. More efficient. Put Nathan's name too. You'll thank us later. And maybe I did. Until now. Because now the yacht had a name. A narrative. It was part of the Clark family legacy. Their words. Not mine. And somehow I'd become the silent partner in a story I had authored. They toasted to it. Sabrina called it heritage. Lillian used it in a university speech about family entrepreneurship. Elliot described it as a testament to generational strength. None of them knew how many times I'd slept in my car between pitch meetings, or how many investor decks I'd revised at 3 a.m. while the power flickered from a shared sublet. They didn't ask. They just assumed. Because when you build something quietly, people think it built itself. But it didn't. I did. And now they were rewriting it without me. Cutting me out not with malice, with precision. As if I had always been temporary. A placeholder. A guest. That night I sat with my coffee untouched. The lights off. The city muted behind glass. And I opened the folder again. Laid out each page on the table. Contracts. Wire receipts. Cancellation logs. Screenshots. A trail of ink and timestamps. It looked like evidence in a trial no one expected me to show up for. But I wasn't preparing for a fight. Not yet. I was doing something else. Something quieter. I was preparing to be seen, and they weren't ready for that. Not even close. I didn't sleep much. Not because I was upset, because I was wide awake with remembering. I remembered the first delivery I ever ran myself. A fleet driver quit, so I threw on a hoodie and did the route. Myself. In a rented van with 2 flat tires by morning, I remembered the pitch where I got laughed out of the room. The VC said I was thoughtful, but he needed someone with sharper elbows. Someone who looked like he could own the room. He meant a man. I remembered the way I used to steam my thrift store blazer in gas station bathrooms. I remembered the investor who asked if I had a male co-founder. I remembered the time my laptop battery died mid-demo, and I pitched from memory to a table full of skeptics anyway. They didn't invest, but 6 months later they came back, this time with smiles. That was the shift. The day the company finally made real money I didn't celebrate. I just paid the invoice for the yacht. No champagne. No announcement, just a transfer. Clean, quiet, mine. Every inch of that boat was built from the deals no one thought I could close. From the nights I worked through holidays. From the contracts I negotiated at airport gates. From the clients I won by being the one who stayed calm while everyone else panicked. That yacht wasn't a gift. It wasn't a legacy. It wasn't some family heirloom. It was a milestone. And I paid for it. All of it. But legally, that's not how it looked. Nathan's name was on the paperwork too. Our accountant called it smart planning. Something about tax optimization. Something about estate protection. At the time, it made sense. Back then, we were still building a life together. Still planning for the long haul. Still trusting that what was mine would be ours, and what was ours would be safe. But what no one tells you is how quickly a shared name can become a weapon. It starts small. A speech from Lillian about family investment. A toast from Elliot about generational assets. Sabrina telling a podcast host that the yacht belongs to the Clark family while her smile reached the mic before her words did. I was still in the room for that one. Sitting in the corner off frame. Smiling. Quiet. That was always my place. Just supportive enough to stay included. Just quiet enough not to interrupt. But the thing about letting others write the narrative, eventually you stop recognizing your own reflection in it. I let them take the lead in conversations. I let them assign the roles. I let them call it a family project even when they didn't invite me to the planning. Every time someone said, "How nice that you're along for the ride," I nodded. Every time Sabrina referred to the boat as our legacy, I stayed silent. Because I thought silence was safer than confrontation. But silence doesn't protect you. It erases you. And slowly, quietly, I had helped them do it. Not by agreeing. Just by not correcting. Now I was watching it happen in real time. My name crossed out, my seat given away, and everyone pretending like it had never been mine. So I started collecting. Not out of spite, out of necessity. I opened the safe in the bedroom, pulled out the envelope with the yacht's original purchase contract, the brokerage letters, the inspection report, the transfer log. Everything with my signature. I laid them out on the bed. Page after page. The ink hadn't faded. And neither had the facts. It felt like assembling evidence for a case I hadn't known I was preparing for. A trial where the verdict had already been delivered, and the defendant was me. But I wasn't on trial anymore. I was the witness, and I had documentation. By the time I closed the folder again, the air felt heavier, like it was pressing me forward. Not away. Forward. I stood there for a long time. Then I went to the hallway. I peeled the old label from the manila folder. The glue stuck a little. That was fine. I replaced it with a new one. One word. Sharp. Centered. Undeniable. I didn't tell Nathan. Not yet. I didn't tell anyone. I just watched the messages come in. Watched the photos from the yacht stack up. Toasts. Sunsets. Group dinners. Belle in a white jumpsuit holding court with people who'd never bothered to learn my job title. Sabrina tagging the charter company with hashtags about legacy. About tradition. About family. I didn't comment. Didn't like. Didn't share. I just watched. And waited. Because something had shifted. Not in them. In me. And the moment I stepped back onto that deck, they would feel it. They just didn't know it yet. They streamed the dinner live. I didn't even have to search for it. Sabrina's profile was still flagged in my notifications. A leftover setting from when I used to care. When I still believed being part of their online life counted as real inclusion. The notification popped up while I was folding laundry. Audio started before I could turn it off. Voices. Glasses clinking. That curated laughter you only hear at events with photographers nearby. The caption said it all. grateful for legacy and love. I stood in the middle of the room, Nathan's shirt in one hand, watching. They were all there. Lillian at the head of the table, wearing that icy blue cashmere cardigan she saves for public photos. Elliot with his usual half-laugh, half-listen expression. Belle glowing like she had a ring light in her pocket. And Sabrina, of course. Centered. Elevated. Smiling like nothing had happened. Then she stood up. Glass in hand. Eyes slightly glassy. Her voice soft. Practiced. When we gather like this, she said, I'm reminded of what makes our family unique. She paused. Let the silence do the work. It's not just tradition. It's the people who carry it forward. With intention. A few heads nodded. Someone clapped. She went on. We only bring those who truly understand what this legacy means. Those who add to it, not subtract. I paused the video. Rewound. Played that line again. Not a name, not a direct attack, but clear as day. Everyone watching knew who wasn't there. And everyone in that room knew why. I looked for Nathan in the frame. Found him halfway down the table. Eyes on his wine. Not speaking. Not moving. He didn't defend me. He didn't leave. He just sat there, letting it play out like it had nothing to do with him. That night I waited until he came out of the shower. His hair still damp, t-shirt soft with age, college logo barely visible from all the washes. I clicked play again. He stood beside the dresser, arms crossed. Watched without blinking. When it ended, I turned to him. She really said that he rubbed his jaw. Sabrina likes speeches. That's your defense. She was probably just trying to sound thoughtful. It wasn't just a dinner, I said. No, he admitted. It was a statement, and you didn't say a word. He looked away. I didn't write the speech, Avery. But you sat through it. He didn't argue, didn't excuse it, just stood there. And somehow that was worse. I walked into the kitchen. Made tea I didn't drink. Saturday at the table with a box I hadn't touched in years. Old cards. Documents. Invitations. Notes I never answered. At the bottom I found it. Maya's baby shower invite. The one they claimed must have gotten lost. I remembered calling Sabrina that day, asking for the address. She laughed. Said, "Oh, that's this weekend. I thought you weren't in town." I had been. I'd sent a gift. Weeks before. I held the envelope in my hands now. Not because it still hurt, but because it no longer surprised me. This wasn't new. This was patterned. The next morning I pulled up the live stream again. Found the exact timestamp of Sabrina's toast. Transcribed her words word for word. Highlighted the line. Slipped it into the folder. Then I opened a message window. Typed slowly. Precisely. Hope your speech felt honest. We'll see how it holds up in person. I hit send. No emojis, no qualifiers. Just the truth. That afternoon I booked a car to Newport. Didn't pack a swimsuit. Didn't pack sunglasses. This wasn't a vacation. I packed documents. Copies. Receipts. I packed proof. Not to wave in anyone's face, but to carry like armor. Because when someone rewrites the story you built, you either let them keep the pen, or you show them who actually owns the page. And I was done letting them write me out. The question now wasn't whether they'd notice. It was how fast they'd scramble when they realized what I was bringing with me. Because the next chapter, it wouldn't be written in whispers. And I wasn't showing up quiet. I packed light. Not for style. Not for comfort. For clarity. One dress. Navy. Simple. Structured. Neutral enough to go unnoticed. Sharp enough to be remembered. This wasn't a weekend trip. This was a statement. Each document went into its own sleeve. Each sleeve into the folder. Contracts. Ownership. Wire records. The charter email. The speech transcript. I wasn't bringing clothes. I was bringing truth. Downstairs, the apartment smelled like coffee. Nathan stood in the kitchen scrolling headlines on his phone. Dry toast on a plate, barely touched. He looked up as I walked in. Eyes scanned the outfit, then the suitcase. You're leaving tomorrow, I nodded. Newport. That soon I booked the car. He set the phone down slowly. Avery, look, I get that you're upset, but do we have to do this? I sat across from him. Let the silence stretch. I'm not upset anymore. His jaw tightened. Then why escalate it? I'm not escalating. I'm responding. He rubbed his temple. This will create tension. You know that. They already made it loud, Nathan. I'm just matching the volume. He leaned back. I don't want to choose between you and my family. You don't have to. He didn't respond. You just have to stop pretending they're not doing what they're doing. His mouth opened, then closed. And that silence. It said everything. I poured my coffee. Let his apology trail into nothing. By late afternoon, I was at the dining table again. Papers spread across the wood. I didn't cry. I didn't pace. I sorted. The baby shower invite with no address. The group photo from Lillian's birthday where I was cropped at the shoulder. The Thanksgiving seating chart with me at the folding table. Each moment small on its own. But together, they painted a portrait. Not of oversight. Of orchestration. As the sun dipped behind the skyline, my phone buzzed. A text. From Jen. We weren't close. Just enough overlap through Nathan. Alumni circles. Finance mixers. The kind of connection you don't think about until it surprises you. Thought you should see this. She sent a screenshot. The yacht's pre-boarding manifest. 10 names. Mine wasn't one of them. At the top, in bold letters, was the line, confirmed cabin assignments. Sabrina hadn't just hoped I'd stay home. She had made it official. I stared at it, then replied with one word. Thanks. I opened the family group chat. The one I hadn't spoken in for months. I typed slowly, purposefully. I'll see you in Newport. I trust there will be room. No emojis, no explanation. Just presence. They saw it. Read receipts lit up in a row. No one replied. They didn't need to. After dinner, I called Ronald's office. His assistant picked up on the second ring. This is Avery Clark. Can you confirm our co-ownership status on the yacht? A pause. Then a soft click of keys. Yes, ma'am. You are listed as co-owner. Equal rights. Could you send me a clean PDF of that contract? Of course. Print one too. I'll pick it up in the morning. Will do. I hung up. Closed my laptop. Zipped the suitcase shut. Inside wasn't fabric. It was history. Folded. Filed. Prepared. The sun hadn't even risen when I stepped out the next morning. Fog wrapped the city in a quiet hush. No traffic yet. No noise. Just the sound of my suitcase wheels on concrete. I stood at the curb and watched the black car approach. Clean. Sleek. No questions asked. The driver loaded my bag into the trunk. I got in. Closed the door. The city faded behind me. Slowly. Like a story that had been told too many times. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Because everything I needed to say, I was about to deliver in person. And this time no one would cut my mic. The air in Newport tasted different. Salted. Sharp. The kind of clean that came with money. The marina sat quiet under a blanket of morning haze. Ropes creaked. Metal rails gleamed. White hulls lined the dock like pearls strung in a row. I stepped out of the car. Simple black dress. Light tan coat. No jewelry. No heels. Just movement. Purposeful. Unapologetic. My suitcase clicked behind me. Steady rhythm. No wobble. I walked past tourists. Past staff unloading crates of fruit and champagne. Past couples pretending not to watch me. Then I saw her, Sabrina, standing near the boarding gate. Posture perfect. Smile mid-sentence. Champagne flute in hand. She turned. Her face didn't register shock. Just pause. Like a page she didn't plan to read had suddenly appeared. Her hand froze midair. Her lips stopped moving. A few others turned too. I recognized them from photos. Elliot? Colette? Belle. No one spoke. Nathan stood just behind the group. Not beside me. Not even near. Eyes flicking between me and them. He didn't wave. Didn't smile. I didn't stop. Their bodies adjusted as I approached. Not with hostility. Just a quiet reorganization. A subtle barrier made of posture and space. As if they thought turning slightly could unmake me. It didn't. I paused at the edge of the group. Gave a small nod. Said nothing. Then walked past. Their silence followed. At the ramp, a tall woman in a navy blazer stepped aside. Her face calm. Professional. Eyes sharp. "Good morning, Miss Clark." She offered the briefest bow of acknowledgement. "Welcome aboard." I pulled my suitcase up the ramp. My heels tapped once. Twice. Then silence. The deck stretched before me like a stage. Everything was curated. Florals. Linen. Glassware arranged like someone had Googled quiet luxury and followed every bullet point. I didn't flinch. I paused at the railing. Looked out at the water. Smooth. Steady. Unbothered. Then it came. A voice behind me. Clear. Projected just enough to carry. "Welcome aboard, Miss Clark." A pause. "The owner is now aboard." My breath didn't hitch, but I didn't move either. I didn't need to turn to know what Sabrina's face looked like. I could feel it. That perfect composure cracking just enough to let the panic bleed through. That tremor behind the eyes. That ache of control slipping. The woman in the navy blazer turned to me. "We've been waiting for your clearance before departure." I met her eyes. "Proceed." She nodded, then walked toward the captain's station. I moved through the lounge. Past the floral centerpieces. Past the monogrammed napkins. Past the strategically arranged name cards meant to signal order. I didn't stop. I didn't sit. I didn't speak. I just kept walking. Through the main salon. Down the hallway. Out onto the aft deck. There alone, I finally exhaled. Behind me, the engines hummed. The dock began to pull away. Newport faded like an afterthought. Land didn't protest. It just disappeared slowly. Quietly. Like it knew. I set my suitcase down beside the bench. Gripped the railing. Not tight. Just firm. Not to hold on. To let go. I wasn't a guest. I wasn't a tag-along. I was the gatekeeper now. And everyone else. They were about to learn what that meant. Inside, I knew they were watching. Some pretending not to. Others too afraid to look directly. But I saw them. And I knew exactly who would crack first. What I didn't know was how far Sabrina would go to regain control. Not yet. I stayed in the lounge longer than I needed to. Not for comfort. Not to make a point. To observe. The yacht had lifted anchor. The marina was behind us. But inside, the tension hadn't moved. Sabrina hadn't said a word to me. Not even a glance. She hadn't prepared for this version of me. The one who didn't flinch. The one who didn't wait for an invite to speak. She paced the upper deck. Not frantically, Just enough. Her heels clicking too fast. Her breath too shallow. Every so often she'd stop to realign a floral centerpiece or straighten a name card. As if perfect symmetry might restore what she'd lost. It wouldn't. Elliot tried to smooth things. Chit-chat with a cousin. A loud joke. But the laughter came too quickly. Too bright. Manufactured. I sipped lemon water. Crossed my legs. Let the quiet do the work. Beside me, Talia scrolled her phone. Calm. Unbothered. But I knew her ears were wide open. I give it 10 minutes, she whispered before she tries to hijack the narrative. She was wrong. It only took 6. Sabrina stepped into the sun. Phone in hand. Camera angled just so, catching the yacht behind her like a private sanctuary. Her voice lifted. Hi everyone, she began. We're so excited to share a little slice of our family tradition today. She beamed. There's nothing quite like the open water to remind you of who you are and where you come from. She used her softest voice, her stage voice, equal parts vulnerable and rehearsed. Family is everything. Legacy, loyalty, love. I nearly smiled at the word loyalty. She went on. The people who are here, they understand what it means to build something that lasts. She said it slowly. Not just wealth. Memory. Commitment. Then it happened. Behind her, a crew member walked across the frame, unaware of the live stream. Or maybe not. He nodded at me in passing, smiled, then looked into the camera and said loud and clear, Glad to have you aboard again, Miss Clark. The owner. Sabrina froze. Just a blink. But it was enough. Her smile twitched. Her hand faltered. The camera shook slightly. The audio caught everything. The sea behind her. A fork clinking, a breath sucked in. Then silence. Not the kind you plan. The kind that cracks. She tried to recover, smiled wider, spoke again, but the comments had already started rolling in. Wait, she's the owner. That's the owner. Tell us more about Avery. Talia leaned toward me, whispered with a grin. That's going viral in 3, 2. Sabrina's fingers tapped the screen. She tried to end the stream. But the damage had landed. Not just an awkward moment. A revelation. In public. To an audience she had curated. The image shattered. 10 minutes later, she found me near the port hallway. Her eyes sharp. Her voice low. You planned that I didn't move. Planned what? That little performance. A man doing his job. Don't play dumb, Avery. I set down my glass. I didn't tell him to say it. Then why was he so loud about it? Maybe he's just used to greeting the actual owner. She blinked. You don't belong here. I stood slowly. That's the thing, Sabrina. I looked her in the eye. I don't need to belong. I bought my place. Her jaw tightened. Then she turned, walked away. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Because next, she wouldn't be the one holding the microphone. Not this time. Dinner was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that follows a rupture. Clinks of silverware. Low murmurs. The scrape of a chair leg. Sabrina hadn't looked at me once. She smiled. She hosted. She passed the wine, but her eyes never landed on mine. The panna cotta in front of me sat untouched. White. Still. Decorated with citrus, like nothing had happened. But something had. And everyone felt it. When she stood for her closing toast, her voice was smooth. Too smooth. I just want to thank everyone for being here, she began. She swept the room with her gaze, skipping over me like I was air. It's not just about luxury. It's about legacy. She smiled. Held her glass high. It's about the people who uphold our story. Who understand what we've built together. People nodded. Glasses raised. But the subtext screamed. When the applause settled, I stood. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough to still the air. I'd like to contribute something. Sabrina's hand froze mid-toast. I reached into my leather folder, pulled out a single sheet, placed it on the table. Face up, bold letterhead. It's from a Zoom call, I said. Last month, a few people leaned closer. Between Sabrina and the family's legal consultant, I tapped the bottom of the page. She's not blood, I read aloud. She shouldn't own a family asset. A pin could have dropped. Color drained from Sabrina's face. I slid a second page forward. This is the purchase agreement. I didn't raise my voice. Initial down payment made by Avery Clark. Sole investor. Legal co-owner listed first. Nathan opened his mouth, then closed it again. I kept going. I'm not saying this for drama. I'm saying it because I'm done being talked about in rooms where I'm one door away. Someone cleared their throat. I didn't stop. For years I let things slide. Little exclusions, passive digs, credit redirected. I looked around the table. But I want to be very clear. This isn't about inclusion anymore. It's about visibility. Nathan finally spoke. I didn't know she was doing this. He turned to Sabrina. Why, Sabrina stammered. I was protecting the family. I didn't think. You thought I'd stay quiet, I said. And you were almost right. A cousin shifted in her seat. Someone coughed. Lillian tried to change the subject. Maybe we can revisit this another time. No, said a voice from the far end. It was Harold, the oldest guest at the table. I think we've all been told different versions of things. Others murmured. Nodded. Not in outrage, in realization. I looked at Sabrina again. You can keep building your version of the story, but not on top of my name. She sat down hard. I gathered the papers, slipped them back into the folder. Before I walked out, I paused. If you want the truth, I said quietly, don't ask the loudest voice in the room. Ask the one who has the receipts. Then I left them there. In the silence they created. And what happened next wouldn't be about what I said. It would be about what they couldn't unsee. That night I didn't sleep. Not because I was restless. Because I wasn't done watching the fallout. I walked the outer deck barefoot, the teak cool beneath me. Salt in the air, lights dimmed behind cabin curtains. Conversations muffled, scattered. No music. No laughter. Just the hush that follows a truth no one can spin. As I passed the lower deck, I heard her voice. Sabrina. Low. Not loud. Not performative. She was speaking to someone. Maybe herself. She took it. It was always meant to be mine. I didn't stop. Didn't need to. She hadn't said she was sorry, just that she had been caught. Later, back in our cabin, Nathan stood at the dresser, folding a shirt he hadn't worn. Neat, deliberate, avoidant. Something about that made me angrier than I expected. I sat on the bed. Waited. He didn't speak at first. Then, softly, I think I always knew. His voice cracked slightly. He kept folding. Not the whole thing, but parts. I saw things. I stayed quiet. I should have said something. Every time she made a dig. Every time they left you out. He looked at the floor. I thought if I kept the peace long enough, it would sort itself out. I nodded. Not forgiveness. Acknowledgement. And somehow that was heavier. You still let it go this far, I said. I know. I got into bed. Pulled the covers over me. He didn't follow. Just stood there, still holding the shirt. Sometimes the sharpest sentences are the ones you don't say out loud. By morning, the lounge was already waking up. I got there first. Saturday with my notebook and a mug of black coffee. People trickled in. Eyes darted. Not one of them ignored me anymore. They didn't rush to apologize. But they didn't pretend I was invisible either. Small gestures filled the silence. Maddie lingered near the bar. She poured herself tea. Said nothing for a long moment. Then quietly, "I should have spoken up years ago." Lillian's sister, who once told me I was too intense, placed an extra spoon beside my plate. Didn't look me in the eye. Didn't need to. Ron Elliott's older brother muttered as he passed. "I saw it coming. Just didn't think it'd crack like this." I nodded. Each comment wasn't grand, but together, they formed something sturdier than all the fake smiles I'd endured for years. That night, I stared at the ceiling, but I wasn't thinking about Sabrina. I was thinking about me. Not the woman who had just taken her seat back. The version of me who had spent years shrinking, years bending, years apologizing for taking up space. I mourned her, not because she was weak, because she was tired. And no one noticed. It wasn't grief exactly. It was a kind of quiet farewell. Around 3 in the morning I got up, opened the folder. Not to reread. Just to see it. To remind myself that this happened. That I hadn't imagined any of it. That I had proof and peace. What I didn't know then was that by the next morning someone unexpected would call me. Someone I hadn't spoken to in years. And what she said would change everything about how this story ends. The fog was still low when I stepped outside. Soft. White. Floating just above the waterline. Everything looked blurred. Muted. Like the yacht was drifting between worlds. Breakfast was set like nothing had happened. Eggs. Toast. Fresh fruit. Pressed juice. Sabrina wasn't there. But others were. No one avoided me. No one embraced me either. They watched. Waited. Like I was no longer invisible. But no longer predictable. I sat at the end of the table, hands around my coffee. Not triumphant, just present. And that alone shifted the air. Mid-morning my phone buzzed. A name I hadn't seen in years. Ronald, the family's lawyer. I stepped out to the lower deck and answered. His voice was calm. Careful. "Avery." I wanted to apologize. He didn't rush. Didn't stumble. For even entertaining the paperwork Sabrina tried to draft. Silence. I knew it wouldn't hold. But I should have shut it down sooner. I didn't say anything. "You've always been the rightful owner," he added. On paper, and in spirit, that part stuck with me. I thanked him. Hung up. Let the phone rest in my palm for a moment. The waves rolled steady below. Like the boat itself was agreeing. Back upstairs I found Talia in the lounge. Her laptop open. Fingers flying across keys. She didn't look up. "I posted it," she said. I didn't ask what. She turned the screen toward me. An essay. Polished. Sharp. Clear. Title bold across the top. "The Woman They Tried to Erase." My name sat beneath it, not buried. Front and center. "Do you want me to take it down?" she asked. "No," I said. I didn't need to explain. It had already started picking up traction. Shares. Comments. Reposts. Not from family. From strangers. From women. From people who recognized a version of themselves in my story. "This isn't revenge," I said. Talia smiled. "No," she said. "It's record-keeping." Later that afternoon I stepped onto the stern. Nathan was already there. Hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the horizon like it might tell him something new. He turned when he heard me. "I've been thinking," he said. His voice was steady. Even. About what I said. What I didn't say. For a long time, I waited. I didn't protect you. Not when it counted. He looked at the railing. Then back at me. "I talked to Ronald. We can change the ownership structure. I want to make it yours. Fully. You've earned it. Over and over. I looked at him. Long, quiet. Then I said it. This was never about a title. It was about being seen. He nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't push. And somehow that meant more than the offer. That night I stood alone on the deck again. The wind had softened. The sky cracked just enough to let the sun spill through in quiet gold. I closed my eyes. Let the light touch me. Let it be enough. Because I wasn't defending my place anymore. I was simply living in it. But something was still coming. A knock I didn't expect. From someone I never thought would reach out. The message came just before sunrise. A simple ping. No subject line. Just a name. Dr. Maya Layton. I hadn't seen it in years. Not since the conference in Denver. Not since our last project together. Not since the silence that followed when I stepped back. She'd been the only one who asked if I was okay. I never answered. Now, she had. I opened the message. Saw the post. Read the comments. We need to talk. You're not the only one this has happened to. My heart paused. She didn't explain more. Didn't have to. I replied instantly. We set a call. By noon I sat cross-legged in the reading lounge. Laptop open. Salt air curling through the window. Her face filled the screen. Still sharp, still warm, but different. Firmer. Avery, she said. You broke something open. I didn't mean to, I said. Yes, you did, she smiled. And you should have. She leaned forward. They've tried to edge out other women too. Quietly, legally, through narrative. She named names, shared stories. Some I knew. Others I never suspected. Co-founders forced into silence. Strategic edits on media bios. Credit vanished. Voices rewritten. It's a pattern, she said. You weren't imagining it. I leaned back. Let it land. For years I'd thought it was just me. Just a bad fit. Just personal. But it wasn't. It was structural. What now, I asked. She smiled. But it didn't quite reach her eyes. That depends on you. You have the voice now. The platform. The receipts. I looked at the screen. At her face. At my own reflection in the glass. She was right. This wasn't just about a yacht. It never was. It was about who gets erased, and who gets the last word. After the call, I walked out onto the deck. The water had stilled. Clouds opened above. Warm light spilled across the bow. I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake. I found Talia near the galley. She was on her phone scanning comments. It's blowing up, she said without looking up. Interviews, panels, podcasts. They want to hear more. I sat beside her. They will. She looked at me. Not just a personal piece, I shook my head. Number. This is bigger. She grinned. That's what I was hoping you'd say. Later that evening, I went to the stern alone. Not to rehearse. Not to plan. To reflect. To remember the version of me who thought silence kept the peace. She was gone now. In her place, someone who knew her voice had value. Someone who knew her truth didn't need permission. Someone who knew. This story wasn't ending here. Because something else was forming. And this time, it was mine to name. On the final morning, I rose before the sun. Not out of habit. Not from nerves. Out of clarity. The yacht was still. The sea quiet. I stepped outside barefoot again. The wood was cool. Familiar now. Every creak, every breeze. It felt different. Because I wasn't a guest anymore. I was home. The breakfast table had fewer people. Smaller smiles. Less performance. Sabrina didn't show. Neither did Elliot or Colette. Talia slid into the seat beside me. She handed me a folded piece of paper. You should read this, she said. It was a letter. From Sabrina. Short. Controlled. But not hollow. She didn't apologize for everything. But she acknowledged enough. Enough to say she knew the game was over. She was stepping back from family affairs. For now. I folded the letter. Slipped it into my bag. I wouldn't forget what she did. But I didn't need her downfall. I had my foundation. And it was louder than her silence had ever been. At noon I gathered my things. Packed with ease. No tension in the zippers this time. Just movement. When I stepped onto the dock, Nathan was waiting. His hand rested on the railing. His tie loosened. No suitcase. "You're not leaving with us?" I asked. He shook his head. "I've got some thinking to do." He met my eyes. "I don't expect you to wait for that." I didn't answer. Some truths don't need a response. We hugged once. Short. Honest. Then I walked away. The town buzzed around me. Footsteps. Voices. The scent of salt and citrus. And yet it all felt still. Because inside something had shifted permanently. I wasn't chasing inclusion. I wasn't demanding space. I had built my own, and now I was ready to use it. The podcast invite came in that afternoon. Then the investor roundtable. Then the request to speak at the Women's Equity Summit. Each message started the same. "We saw your story." Each time I smiled. Because for once my voice wasn't echoing into silence. It was being heard. Months passed. The essay Talia wrote became a series. Dr. Layton and I launched a panel initiative. We started collecting stories. Not just from women like us. From anyone erased by precision. Anyone sidelined through silence. And it grew. A ripple became a wave. Then one morning a package arrived at my door. Inside was a card. No signature. Just a sentence. "Some legacies begin quietly. But they don't have to stay quiet." Beneath it a brass plaque. My name. Polished. Weighted. I held it in my hands. Felt its edges. And smiled. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a chapter in someone else's story. I felt like the author. And the story was just beginning. Sometimes, it's not the big betrayals that shake you. It's the small, quiet ways people show you you're not part of what you thought you were. A missing name, an empty chair, a celebration that went on without you. I'm still holding pieces of that moment. Still deciding what I'll carry forward and what I'll finally set down. If any of this felt close to home, I'd love to hear your story. Even just a line. Sometimes that's all it takes to feel less alone. There's more to come. And maybe somewhere in the middle of all of it you'll find a part of your own story too. For now, I'm just sitting with the silence and letting it say what no one else would.